But in a situation where you find that a look at this,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. Now, we begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Quite interesting stories. The lead story talks about adulterated petrol unsettles motorist. It has the riders that says NNPC moves to withdraw 16.5 billion naira worth of fuel. You have also marketers halt sales to seek compensation. Higher methanol in PMS isolated case withdrawn, and that's according to the regulatory authority. And then you see the pictorial there showing you the long queues, in the filling stations. This time around, I believe the corn oil in the Central Business District. And then you'd find beside that delayed corruption cases. Stop blaming judiciary. CJN tackles Malami, and that's on page 6. The next story below that, bandits kill 10, abduct village head, others in Katsina, Niger. And then Julius Berger diversifies into agriculture to process cashew. Okay, we'll see how that goes. At the bottom there, Nigeria's data security compromised as NIMSI's portal remains comatose. It has the writer that says Galaxy backbone contradicts Commission's claims. Now, not forgetting the stories above the lead story, they're saying EFCC quizzes the SAR officials, others over wheat project scandal. Fresh row as Kano APC peace move collapses. The next one there on page 10. 2023, United for Better Nigeria initiative. Arewa groups, others back Southeast presidency, adopts Anyim Pius. So these are some of the stories on the front page of Daily Trust this morning.
All right, moving on to Blueprint newspaper today. We have the lead story there that says Kwankwaso Utomi's third force, no threat, says APC, PDP. And writers here that says mega party to be inaugurated in Abuja soon. APC too grounded to be threatened, says BMO. Like those before it, coalition will fizzle out, says PDP. And just above it, you'd see a story that says bandits stopping us from burying our dead, says Zamfara residents. And a rider or riders that say gunmen kill 9, abduct monarch, others in Katsina. Ipman chair kidnapped, driver killed in Edo. Okay, just beside the pictorial there, you'd see a story that says FCT polls. INEC to deliver sensitive materials in Gariki office Thursday. Accredits 2,242 observers, 340 journalists. And you see a pictorial there that was taken during the 53rd annual Nigerian Association of Law Teachers Conference in Kano on Tuesday. And if you check the bottom, you'd find a story that says 11 to die by hanging in Niger over murder of 7 on page 15. We also have IMF insists on fuel subsidy removal once VAT increased on page 21. And we also have NUC okays 2 more varsity for Lagos, says 203 is not enough. Details of that story can be found on page 5. And then CJN tackles Malami over delayed justice and funding. These are some of the stories that made the front page of Blueprint newspaper. All right. On The Nation, the stories are not far from each other. The lead story talks about pressure on Buhari to reject a reworked electoral bill, with the writer that says eyebrow on provision that ministers should resign to contest for office. INEC to get list of candidates August 18. And then you'd find at the very top, charges dropped against hotelier, others over OAU students' death. Senate okays 6 additional law school campuses. You'd also see Lagos Blue Line in 85% ready, is 85% ready.
says Lamata MD. JAMB shifts UTME registration by 1 week. And then you see below the nameplate, South's governors resolute on power shift, says Akeredolu. Resolute on power shift. And that's according to Akeredolu. Now, these are the stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning.
All right, moving on to the Guardian newspaper. Lead there says dirty fuel. Litigations loom over damaged vehicles, scarcity to end weekend. Writers here say NNPC asks trading firms for emergency petrol supplies as federal government battles to restore order. Queues spread across Nigeria. Black marketers sell at 250 naira per litre in Abuja. NMDPRA NNPC identifies supplier of adulterated fuel to sanction misdeed. Ipman blames NNPC, admits payment of 36 billion naira backlog. Many vehicles to develop engine drivability problems, experts warn. Why fleet owners, companies, motorists must take legal action. And then right above that particular lead story, you have any party with northern presidential candidate will lose, says southern governors warn. We also have bill to raise minimum qualification for president passes second reading. ASU threatens indefinite strike at Michael Okpara Varsity. And right below it, below the pictorial there, you'd see Nigerians, telcos, government agencies stranded as NIMC glitch enters 8th day. These are some of the stories on the Guardian newspaper.
All right, now take a look at the Tribune newspaper, the Nigerian Tribune. Quite a number of stories there, but we'll just take a look at the lead story this morning. It says, ASU insists on strike, says FG dribbling us. So there's a loss of confidence on the words of the government to fulfill its own mandate. Also, you'd see other stories there at the very top. You would see Sylvester Oromoni, first autopsy botched, and that's according to pathologist. Senate approves 6 new law schools in 6 geopolitical zones. And then Ogun border communities demand employment quota from customs. Well, basically, these are the major stories. Quite a number of stories, but we'll just restrict ourselves to those ones.
All right, now the Punch here, you have the lead story on adulterated petrol, saying FG may return fuel to suppliers. 100 million litres affected, says marketers. Fuel shortage queues may last a weekend. NNPC increased supply to bridge supply gap, recalls polluted fuel. Right at the top there, you'd see Nigerians made 1,350 calls about data breaches in 2021, according to report. We also have Reps Daily Fuel Consumption Panel begins probe behind closed doors. And then below it, you'd find a story that talks about human parts uncovered in Oyo building and police arrest suspects. And details of that story can be found on page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. We'll move on to more papers now.
All right. Now, on the Business Day newspaper, just about the lead story there saying, dirty petrol arrived Nigeria January. Slipped NNPC's test. So that's another way of putting the story that we've seen on other papers as well, and that's just about the main story there.
All right, the final paper we have is This Day newspaper, and the lead story it says Oshibajo, Supreme Court seems to be exceeding constitutional limit in election matters, and we have writers that says legal interpretation must bow to people's wish, cites Zamfara's case in 2019 polls, visits Hanifa's family in Kano, prays for the repose of her soul. Right above that story, you'd find a story that says Nigeria drags UK's crime agency to court over 150 million pounds Abacha loot. Says UK, US oppose move. And these are some of the stories on the front page of This Day newspaper.
All right, now there's something very interesting at the top, perhaps to usher us into the discussions. It says on this Day newspaper, it says adulterated fuel, Buhari angry, or this query of NMDPRA head. while this is happening. This is the reaction of the president. Well, let's get perspectives on this. We have Ben Sheman in the studio, the Director News, Voice of Nigeria. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak.
Morning, my colleagues.
Yeah. Well, very interesting stories this morning, but you know, even more interesting because it affects us all. One way or another, we all use petrol, and you know, for the past few days, the experience has been very nasty for many people. I, for one, yesterday, just a day before yesterday, it was crazy getting fuel. After spending like an hour in the filling station, at the end of the day, when it was my turn, the fuel was finished. Wow. So, you know, it was a really tough one, trying to get fuel. So here we are, adulterated petrol has found its way into our system. How did that even happen?
Good thing I've seen that the president is angry. Good thing the president has ordered for an investigation. Good thing the president is the Minister of Petroleum. So, of course, things will have to be done. You see, since we import this, when I say we, I mean Nigeria. Since we import this, there's supposed to be what is called pre-shipment inspection. Before you ship this into Nigeria, you inspect at the port of importation. And even when it lands, of course, there are experts who must also test to see. And we have very many agencies that can do all of this. How did this slip by and entered into Nigeria, and not just Nigerians, Nigeria, virtually every filling station is being supplied with this since January. Well, it's not the first time. During the Abacha day, there used to be this petrol imported. Look, it smelled like a rotten animal that time. But here we are, a repeat of history. So it follows that some people who are in charge of standards organizations of Nigeria, what you are importing, is it up to standard, international best practice? Weigh and measure. There is an agency also in charge of many of these things. At the point of even downloading, if I put it this way, this product, PMS, into filling stations, where there are no checks.
I mean, is this surprising given the fact that some experts have said that, you know, I always recall that interview with Yabagi where he said, we do not even have functional meters, you know, and that with the new PIA that is coming on board and the restructuring of the petrol, of the NNPC, that Department of Weigh and Measures is largely going to become very, you know, redundant.
Yeah, but you see, truth be told, there are directors, deputy directors in this ministry in charge of all of this. Now, if what you are saying is the truth, honestly, it should be checked immediately, because we cannot allow these abnormalities and aberrations. It's so abnormal that we should be facing this kind of a thing. Now, look at some of the papers saying cases in court are looming. Of course, if cars engines are knocked, of course, it's going to be traceable. To trace them to this by bad fuel, and of course it's not going to be good for the government when people begin to sue here and there. So people should actually do their work. After all, why is it very, very hard for us to do a turnaround maintenance of these refineries and stop this kind of importing? And if all the while since January it has been there, it means we have been living with it. That is very dangerous. And you can see the queues, like you said. Unfortunately, it was when you reach your turn and they said fuel was finished. Thank God it wasn't the gate of heaven that was closed against you, but it tells you there is a hope. And I hope that the president, who indeed has ordered for a probe, it shouldn't just be a probe for a probe's sake. it should bring results. There has to be sanctions. And if sanctions are not meted out, of course, it's going to be a continuous thing. After all, you break the law, and of course, there are no sanctions. So some people will believe you break the law and blame some other people.
But shouldn't the NNPC be queried as well?
Absolutely, because it is the main umbrella of it's the administrator when it comes to fuel itself. And if, right from the group managing director, by now they ought to be sanctioning some people. And when you wake up to say, no cause for alarm, queues are still there, and you're telling us these queues have been withdrawn, at what point were they withdrawn? And where were they disposed of?
And
where did you throw them away?
For sure that
and
everything has been withdrawn?
Exactly. How do we ensure that everything has been withdrawn? There are instances where car makers abroad will say, car number, serial, this. We've realized that from that number to this, they have some faults, either in fuel pump or either in tapping glasses and other. So they are all withdrawing them from the market. But some people don't return them. And that's why you find some cars, they have this persistent headache. You are always the customer to the mechanic. Well, your home is not feeding well, mechanics are enjoying your patronage. So this is a serious thing.
All right. Well, where do we go from here now? What are the lessons from here? For this to have been with us since from January, and all this while, no one detected or no one knew that this was going on. What does that say about our processes? Does it mean that it was not, what do you call it now, of taking, by the petrol marketers, and why is that taking that long?
You see, it's when you have a connivance and somebody is just, you either refuse to do your job, or you connive to ensure that the bad thing is done. If I tell you this, there is a sniffer dog to check, people carrying hard drugs. If some people decide to connive, you can take the dog to a wrong direction, and those who are perpetrating the act will just pass by. So what will correct this is sanction. Let people be sanctioned when it comes to dereliction of duty, negligence. In fact, you just realize that probably those who would have done thorough checking, they were there on Facebook. I'm saying probably. So it is a serious thing that should not be taken with just kid gloves. No, we should tackle it properly.
All right. Let's take a look at other stories. We are seeing this bickering, or what do you call, back and forth between the Minister of Justice and the CJ. And one of the stories there on the front page of Daily Trust got my attention about delay in corruption cases. The Minister of Justice seemed to be pointing fingers at the judiciary as being the ones responsible for the delay in judicial cases. And the CJN is firing back, saying that you cannot blame the judiciary for all of that, pointing some of the concerns that the judiciary have leveled before now.
Well, Ayuba, what's the difference between the left hand of Ayuba, the right hand of Ayuba, the same Ayuba? This is the same justice or judiciary system in Nigeria. And I think that when within the system you have this kind of blame game, it doesn't augur well for the country. It's just like the police versus the Police Service Commission. They all are in court doing what? Challenging each other as to who indeed has the right to recruit 10,000 policemen in this country to serve this country, protect Nigerians. Instead of doing the job they're doing, they are in court. So now, when the Minister of Justice and you now have the Chief Justice of Nigeria, they are exchanging banters, I think it doesn't augur well for the country. And we should be, rather they should be thinking of that there should be limit as to when some cases should be finished. And that's why some people call for specialized courts. Cases of corruption of this nature, you don't begin to treat them from lower courts to the Supreme Court. There has to be some limitations. If you now create, let's say even electoral court, and you create what you also call criminal cases of this nature, economic crimes courts, and you say, look, this has to be ended within 1 year, so be it. But when you have this...
We have these recent cases of the, Bureau de Change operators that were arrested on the account of being sponsors of terrorism and all of that. Those are issues that are yet to, be, the trial is yet to commence, for some of those arrested. Now, what the CJN is pointing to the fact that more often than not, the prosecutors, that is the Ministry of Justice in this sense, they file cases that they cannot prove in most cases, that they just file them. And so as a result of that, you see all sorts of delays. And he also pointed to the issues of budgeting, the ceiling being given to the judiciary, as always not being enough to take care of the estimates that the judiciary, is making as part of the reasons for, some of these issues.
Yes. You see, when Dorothy Akwinle, NAFDAC boss, was still alive, I had an interview with her where indeed she was worried. If you look at the drugs these people are engaged in, and you now look at the fine, a fine of 5,000 naira, a fine of 10,000 naira. And that was why, at the point, look, these people have been caught. The agents are busy giving out money to those who indeed will come to testify against the criminals. And of course, if you are giving that kind of money, you don't appear at all. Now, when we come to issues of this nature that you're talking about, honestly, we need a judiciary that has to be, cases must be time-barred. We cannot prosecute cases in perpetuity, and you cannot just bring some allegations, accusations, and the charges are up to 200. In the end, the court will just say there is no due diligence, and you don't appear to prosecute. And therefore, they said you're wasting the time of the court. And they set the person free because the judges are seated and they will judge somebody based on the facts presented before the judge. And when indeed you also have the big ones, the senior advocates of Nigeria, sometimes they behave like lots in themselves. You can't just sit down and the judge, no, I am going to so that case has been it's not going to sit. They won't sit over so there is an adjournment. They keep on adjourning, and they take too many cases at the same time. So which one will you face? When the nation is just simply waiting. So that's why the minister at the point will say the judiciary. But again, the Chief Justice is saying it's really not about the judiciary. They are not the one prosecuting. You are, as the ministry, the one prosecuting. After all, you brought them. The court did not bring the people. The ministry brought them there. So one is going to adjudicate, but you must present your facts as they are. They must be convincing enough to earn a prosecution. A judgment.
Okay. Now let's talk about, or can you share your thoughts on the bill to raise minimum qualifications for president that has passed second reading? Do you think this bill would be signed into law?
I think it should be signed into law. Because a situation where you're applying for a job, say in Masscom, say in some government agencies, they say this is the class of degree you should be. That's for level 8. Now, you're reaching a position where the president, you just say, no, it should be secondary school. Secondary school shouldn't be the limit. If you check some other democracies, look at America. The fact that someone even served in the military outside the academic attainments is another plus. Because you now know the security architecture, the heartbeat of the nation. And so I support the National Assembly yes, let's up the ante.
But should that just go for the presidential, the office of the president? I mean, aren't we, also to look at other offices like the parliamentarians, the National Assembly, for instance, and that requires a high level of understanding, isn't it? So shouldn't we be looking at that as well?
I think it's a thing we can just copy paste in all these instances. Whoever is seeking to be a lawmaker, whoever is seeking to go into the executive, I think should face this same law. Now look at the case with the judiciary. It's always that, I mean, you cannot say, I have just a secondary school certificate, and from there you are now the Chief Justice of the nation. No, it won't work. You can't be the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation just because you have a diploma. No, if that's the case, then it should be applicable to the legislature and the executive. So I support that it should start up there and permeate or go down to the lowest level. Even councillors, we should not be talking of, secondary school certificate. Yeah. We are talking of people who are very close to the grassroots. So let it be. Okay. We don't need secondary school to be the minimum.
All right, well, we'll take a short break now, and then when we come back, we'll continue with our newspaper review. Please stay with us.
The idea was to give the interim government confidence that there is somebody, a military man, who is well known, who can be accepted.
You alluded to the case of your son, Umar Farouk. Are you in touch with him?
Yes, yes. He phones us 2 times, sometimes 3 times in a month.
As always, when I'm talking about late Abiola, I still thank my God for directing me on things to do when he gave me that leadership of this country.
Many of you honest Fulanis, you allow this man to cast aspersion on you.
You know, Zamfara is the mother of all bandits.
The biggest problem, if you permit me, is the fact that we have not been able to get the totality of our citizenry.
It's very, very difficult to have a fixed mind like that this one you will hand over to this person because you think you will do better.
I don't see myself under no circumstance ever leaving APC for another political party.
Now, here on the Mambila Plateau, and this is where the hydroelectric power dam is supposed to be constructed.
Most people in Nigeria are ignorant of the fact that employing a child as a maid is in fact against the law.
Access to the textile mill has been very difficult.
I believe, or I think that if you want to make money, it should be in a place where there are not plenty of people that can do what you do.
From the way things are happening now, I don't think the two parties will make any impact.
I've been talking about the updates concerning the campaign of Nigerian Super Eagles in Abuja.
Bola Tinubu has informed President Muhammadu Buhari of his ambition to contest for the position of president.
To be self-reliant, a blind man defies all odds to become a carpenter in Gombe State.
The country is now experiencing a fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic with the emergence of the Omicron variant.
Talks are ongoing between NRC management and the union.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. And we have in the studio Ben Shema, Director, News Voice of Nigeria, and he's giving us perspectives on some of the major issues on our newspapers this morning. Now, at the bottom of the Daily Trust newspaper, another interesting one about NIMC. We are saying that Nigeria's data security has been compromised as NIMC's portal remains comatose. Now, this is despite all the BVN, NIN linkage and all of that, and the expectations of Nigerians that perhaps that will bring a lot of change to intelligence gathering and all of that. Is this a setback in your thought?
Honestly, I think it's a serious matter. There is this thing called identity theft. If it is true the data has been compromised, I tell you, criminals will always go into systems and begin to pick the identity of some ladies, some men, and what they do is to just replace their photos there. And they can use that. The person is this on photograph, but when it comes to fingerprints, they are not the same. But they use that to perpetrate quite a lot of crimes. You see, in South Africa, it's easy for some people to do that kind of a scam. You get the lady's details, you just replace that with someone's photograph, and it earns you a kind of a marriage with somebody, and it also makes you to become a resident, and it's at the point of the person that has been defrauded, whose identity has been stolen, now going to marriage or going to do something officially. They say, no, we have it on record, look at it, you are married. I said, no, it's not me. And by the time they go into the system, they just saw that it is truly her data, but the photograph has been changed. So these kind of frauds are they happen. After all, when you sit down, you receive some calls. Are you Mr. So-so-so? Yes, I am. I'm calling you from so-so-so bank. Your account number, this. They call the correct account number. But the problem they have is with the bank verification number. They just tell you, there's a missing number in your bank verification number. What's the correct thing? Because we are upgrading our system. The unsuspecting person would just give that out. The next thing is for the person to see, alert, your money has been stolen. You go to the bank shouting, So if truly this is what is happening, it's a serious matter. And that is for individuals. What about security agencies? Can this happen there? Can there be hackers going into security network where classified information is being stolen? Is it possible? How leak-proof are issues with NIMC? So it's a serious matter, and we were also hoping that with all this registration, Nigerians should be able to start using DNA, fingerprints, to grab many of these criminals. I saw a video, this social media thing. A lady saw an alert, they've taken 3 million from her account. She went to the bank, and the bank was saying they have nothing to do with that. And the lady was rolling at the gate and yelling there. And the bank just neglected her. It shouldn't be.
We actually saw a lot of those cases, last year in most banks. And they're still talking about this. We have 1,350 Nigerians making calls about data breaches, according to a report in 2021. Meanwhile, there seems to be a lot of confusion between the Commission and also Galaxy Backbone, which is the government agency hosting the data of most government agencies, and also NIMSI.
Yeah, NIMSI will always come to tell you all is well, and there's nothing to be worried about. But again, how is it? We've seen in the past, and it's still happening, that some people's data have been hacked upon. Wrongdoers or evildoers are busy.
It's in the 8th day that this Galaxy Backbone are experiencing a downtime. So, everybody is not safe. Nobody's data is safe at all.
I hope criminals are not having a field day. And look, they should be able to be working with the police at, maybe on a weekly basis. We bring out a list and say, look, these are people who are involved in a scam. And of course, when it comes to cyber security or insecurity, we should be able to catch those scammers, publish them, let people know, publish, shame some of them. And I tell you, it's not easy for some of them to be traced. Really not easy, because they just use ATM and they're withdrawing people's money. So there has to be a kind of a leak proof. Support Nigerians, because they are becoming vulnerable. And when this continues and Boko Haram, ISWAP, some other people begin to hack into security network, it's going to be bad for the security architecture in this country. It's going to be bad even for hospitals, because your systems are being hacked upon. And today we're talking of virtually everything we want to do, we're using some this, that. It's going to be a terrible thing. It's going to be bad for CBN if they go into their system and begin to tinker with the nation's treasury. It's a big problem that we hope NIMSI should be looking out for.
All right, now let's take a look at the lead story on the Nation newspaper, talking about pressure on Buhari to reject the reworked electoral bill. A lot of concerns really have been raised, as if you look at part of the provisions where ministers are denied the right to contest while serving as ministers. So it appears that there are a lot of interest here that is likely to change the course, or I would say that rather the expectations of Nigerians as regards this electoral bill.
You see, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, when the bill was taken to the President last year, said, well, he still has to advise the President. And the advice was that, look, we can't be saying just one way of getting candidates, direct primaries. No. And that was why the thing was stepped down to now make it 3, direct, indirect, and consensus. Now, the next issue is, like you said, there are issues involved. When you say political appointees, but I tend to agree, I'm saying personally, I tend to agree with this, even though we are reviewing the press, what they wrote. How will you be a minister and you are contesting for a post? You left the office of minister and you are campaigning over there. So what happens to governance? Meanwhile, the executives are those who indeed deliver the services, the dividends of democracy. You have left to now go contest. Well, files are waiting.
And there will be a clash of interests.
Exactly. And if you do that, PAMSEC in that ministry is also having an interest. A director in that of a ministry is also having an interest. So the place will just become ungovernable. Therefore, I think that if you have decided you want to contest, decide in full. You can't put one leg here and the other one over there. You can't have 2 horses going opposite direction. And of course, you are seated at the middle.
Okay.
It shouldn't be.
So what's your general thoughts about, leaders who have actually served not wanting to retire and still seeking more positions?
It's just like in civil service, people going to change their age to remain in service. The more you remain, the more you block your child from entering the system. If honestly you have played your game, like Shakespeare would say, the world is a stage. Come play your part. Viewers will see you, the audience will see you, and clap for you. And when the ovation is loud enough, quit the scene. And that's where we're talking of mentorship, mentoring. If you are at the point of exiting and you are refusing to exit, it also means you didn't mentor some people. You just have this group that was continue to say Tazalche, say Kai, you must continue with or without elections. And that's the tragedy of the rule. When you begin to see that, look, this man is not just performing. This lady is just not performing. But because, the person is from your side, the person is from your region, the person is from your religion, the person is from your denomination, and therefore he should just continue in perpetuity. No, it says a lot. There's always fatigue in everything. It's like farming. When you reach a certain age, you just have to stop farming. And by that, you must have also told people, shown some people, recruited some people, trained them to take charge, so that they will say, look, I'm performing because my mentor is still there. But when you feel that, when we were in secondary school, then military head of state Buhari, Obasanjo visited our secondary school, and they were talking about us being leaders of tomorrow, I have 1 year to retire from service. My tomorrow, I don't know.
Whether it has come
so
or not.
they are still so visible right now. And my children are, we are having grandchildren. And so when I say tomorrow is your day, and I'm still occupying your tomorrow, I think it's not the best. And that's why I can see people like Sule Lamido, they're saying they've come of age and it's time for them to quit the scene. But you can also see that his own son is coming on board, so which tells you, well, it's for the electorate to put them on scale. Irrespective of where they come from. But we should not be using sentiments when it comes to elections. We shouldn't just say because the person is from my area, even when that person is lame, is incapable, we begin to say, no, our own is our own. Tiwatuani, Yoruba was saying, our own is our own. We should discard that. And this principle of some people jumping from one party to another, today when it doesn't favor you, no, you get some like minds and you move to form another association. Is that really what you were sent to do? Look at Great Britain, look at America. Even though you have some other small political parties, or even France, you just see that there are always two dominant political parties. Don't we have principles? I think if we have principles, we cannot be changing political parties the way we change our clothes, the way we change our shoes. No, some people should have a principle, and that principle should be a guiding thing that some youth will follow. When we say, who are the mentors we have today? When we say, where are the stakeholders that the young are looking forward to? Who are they? If we begin to count, is it by moving from one party to another? Is it by moving from one association to another? Is it by heightening tension within the country? It's really not about grammar. It's service delivery.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We have to end this discussion here now. We thank you for coming on the program and sharing your perspective with us.
My pleasure. Thanks.
But in a situation where you find that a look at this,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that